For today, sad news. We found out earlier this morning that former Deputy Prime Minister Lord John Prescott has died aged 86. John, who had Alzheimer's, passed away at home, and tributes have been pouring in all morning, including from Sir Tony Blair, who said there was no one quite like him in British politics. And there's certainly no one like him now, Sue, is there? I mean, it's a different mould altogether.
It's a completely different ballgame. I mean, I think he was probably one of the last authentic politicians that we have, that what we saw is what we got. You know, he was a man of the people. He wasn't frightened of showing, you know, the sides of him that nowadays they wouldn't want you to see.
Yeah.
And I think we loved him because of that. And I just feel that you got what it said on the tin, really.
Yeah. But it was warts and all. Remember when he went into the crowd and he took somebody out?
Yeah. But he would...
Look,
yeah,
look, watch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But he would answer a question directly. Oh. Yeah, I mean, that's not brilliant, but...
Yeah, but it is kind of that natural reaction that anyone else would have done.
He didn't do... You know how they all seem to... what do they call it? Pivot now. They're taught how to pivot, to swerve the questions. I always think that John Prescott was quite direct.
He was, but could we, Mariella, deal with that style of politician now, do you think?
Well, I think that's the big question, isn't it? Because I think, you know, it's what we think we want, but as soon as someone does present themselves authentically, then we judge them or cancel them or, you know... I met John Prescott a couple of times and I think he was exactly, as you say, he was the man that he presented himself as. He didn't speak in those stupid catchphrases that politicians... I mean, they know that the public hate them, so why do they keep doing it? You know, they keep answering with the same, you know, 3 words or whatever, and he never did that. And I think the public loved him. The media didn't so much. And I sometimes wonder if it was partly to do with the fact that he was one of the last sort of aspirational socialists. Like, he had his Jaguars and he had his... And he wasn't a hair shirt kind of left-winger. No, he was someone who wanted everyone to have good things in their lives. And that's sort of out of fashion now as well.
I mean, I met him a lot because I was a sort of young researcher trainee sort of in his constituency, and he was really good to me, and you know, he was like a good, decent bloke, so I've got such fond memories of him. He had a great sense of humour. I mean, did you not get him to do the shipping forecast on here?
He came on, I think it was like 2011 or something, and I remember them saying to me, oh, because he was about to work for Radio 4, I think, and they said, get him to do the shipping forecast. And I was like, I'm not asking someone from Parliament to do that. But anyway, typical me, I did. And he did it, and it was so good and so funny.
I think we've got a clip, actually.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
This is the shipping forecast, brought to you by the Loose Ladies Weather Office. There are warnings of a heat wave as Zoe Tyler's bedroom is showing some of the hottest temperatures on record. However, the cold front has been hanging around Sherry Houston's sex life, showing no sign of warming up, ever. Kate Thornton is looking stormy, but promises to brighten up later. Colleen Nolan is as windy as usual, with everything veering south imminently.
We got that right. Yeah, I mean, he was a larger-than-life character, there's no doubt about it. And, I mean, when I was reading about it this morning, you know, he died with Alzheimer's, and as we know, you know, it's a condition that affects so many people, and it did strike me that larger-than-life character would be diminished inevitably by Alzheimer's, and that's an experience that so many families have. And, I mean, you're living that right now, Mariella.
Yeah, it's a terrible contrast, isn't it? Because, you know, dementia, in whatever form it manifests itself, it does take away the person that you once knew. You know, my grandmother died of dementia, and my mother is very ill with it now and in a care home. And it's just... Sometimes it's the contrast that's so painful, because she was this incredible, vivacious... I mean, really quite annoying in so many ways. Talk non-stop. Don't know where she got that from, where I got that from. But she would walk like 12 miles a day up in the Ayrshire Hills, which is where she lived for the last 25 years of her life. And now, you know, she's wheeled everywhere. She doesn't recognise any of her children. You know, so much of who she was is gone. And to see 2 generations of your family affected like that.
When was she diagnosed, Mariella?
Beg your pardon?
When was she diagnosed?
She was diagnosed I mean, that's the other thing. She was diagnosed now 16 years ago.
Wow.
And the doctor at the time said, I've got bad news and bad news. First of all, it is dementia. But secondly, she's incredibly fit because of all her marching in the mountains. She didn't drink, she didn't smoke. None of the things that they often say are contributing factors, which I always find quite annoying because it's sort of a judgment on people, when actually a lot of the time it's just genetic, you know. And yeah, so 16 years she's lived since her diagnosis. I think the sort of average is 10. But it's not a blessing, you know, and in fact it's affected a lot my opinion about assisted dying, which I know would be much more complicated around dementia and Alzheimer's. But nevertheless, you know, my mum would not want to be in the situation that she is now in. I know that, you know, I'm her eldest daughter, and you know, I wish there was something I could do about it. I actually downloaded the Dignitas form to join it today for myself. Yeah, just because we were talking about it earlier, and I thought, you know, you pay a fee and you sort of, at least then it's on the cards if you want it.
But again, that requires the person to be compos mentis in order to.
Yeah, but that's why you have to join now while you are
ahead of time.
Yeah.
But also, you know, obviously there are tests now, and that's the other thing.
Well, that is interesting, isn't it? Because there is a test that can tell you whether or not you are likely to inherit the genetic kind of version, but not necessarily the medication that would be able to stop it if you were positive, if you like.
There's no cure.
So, well, I mean, they're developing drugs, aren't they? But there's certainly no cure, as you say. Would you do that? Would you want to know?
No. Seeing my mum go through Alzheimer's was the hardest disease I've ever watched anyone go through, mainly for us as a family. You know, my mum got to a point where she didn't know what was going on, but for the family to watch your mum slowly lose your mum, you know, for 5 years I grieved my mum while she was still here, and then had terrible guilt because when she died I didn't grieve for a year because I was just relieved that she wasn't there anymore. But I've heard about this, you can be tested for it. If I was tested for it and I had it, it would ruin whatever life I have left because I'd be dreading it. I mean, I already have the fear of it anyway.
Yeah, it's going to ruin
But it's my eldest son's biggest fear of me getting it, because he said to me, I just don't think I can cope with you getting that. Anything else I could deal with, but I can't watch that. And and I just think it would ruin all our lives if we knew.
It would, I think it would have a huge impact on your next of kin, of like all the decisions they made about their life, about I quite fancy going here, or I might want to go and live in this country. Everything would be governed. And I personally, I think about it ahead of time, and I think I don't want my son to have to look after me at that stage of my life. So I'm with you, actually, because
Well, let's go together.
We'll go to...
We'll have a weekend in Amsterdam or Geneva, and then off we go.
En route,
But I think the test, you know, obviously I've thought about it a lot because it's supposed to go down the maternal line and 2 generations, you know, of my maternal line. But ultimately, if it's going to cause extra stress for my children while I'm alive, and if there's nothing I can do with the information apart from fret and probably think that every single thing I forget, which is quite a lot, your brain fog, menopausal, you know, then actually it's pointless. But then you feel guilty because obviously if you want to contribute to medicine's knowledge of what's happening, then they need to get people at this stage rather than later. So it's a terrible
It's a really
quandary.
personal decision that everyone is going to have to make dependent on their own circumstances. And just can we send our very best wishes to Lord John Prescott's family as well. We've lost him.